My name's Isaac Marshall. I'm a principal with Aldrich Pears Associates. We're a planning and design firm that works exclusively for mission-driven nonprofit organizations. So it's museums, science centers, some zoos, nature centers, that kind of thing. What we really look for are projects that are really trying to make a difference in the community. There's a lot of projects that, especially the work that we do in the UAE, that they haven't figured out why they're doing the work yet, but they have figured out how. They've got the money, they've got the land, they've got the resources to do it, so let's build a museum. But they haven't thought why. And so what we try to do is look for the projects where people really have a compelling reason to do the project. And usually it has to be something that responds to the community. The work that we do in Vancouver is labor of love work. We care about our community, and so the things that we learn as we're traveling the world doing these projects, we can apply to the projects that we do here. We've worked with Museum of Vancouver and Science World and the Maritime Museum and all the Britannia Mine. We just opened that project this year. So we do some work in Vancouver, but as a percentage of our total work, it's very, very small. The reason we're in Vancouver is not for business reasons. We love Vancouver. And a lot of our staff, it's a compelling reason for people to come work for us. The work is fantastic, and the city's fantastic. And it's also because of the community. There's an ecosystem of designers here, content developers, graphic designers, architects, industrial designers, all design professions, programmers, everything that we might need. And so we can really tap that. When you get called into a project, often it's like, well, show us a drawing of what we can expect. But you don't put pen to paper until you actually know what it is you're doing. So we would do an audit of what they have currently, and we would ask all the questions about education programs, about demographics in the neighborhood, about who do you serve, really figuring out the visitor, because that's what we're designing as a visitor experience. So if you want somebody to make positive change in their life, you have to give them an experience that makes it relevant to them. So if you can make an issue relevant to an individual who didn't think that doesn't affect me, all of a sudden they see the relevance on their own life and they want to do something to change that. So it's figuring out, okay, what does this audience understand when they walk in the door? What does this audience need to understand so that the topic becomes relevant to them, and how do you make it meaningful to them? I think it comes down to not an individual building or an individual object, but it's the ecosystem that is required in order for a project to thrive. And you look at projects like Granville Island in Vancouver, I think is an excellent example. It was a moment in time, and all the people who were involved took advantage of that and said, look, here is something that we can make that is going to benefit the community. They didn't design it for tourists. If you design it for tourists, the locals will hate it. If you design it for locals, the tourists will love it, because tourists want to see what makes your place unique, what makes your place special. Granville Island does that. I think a recent example is the Highline project in New York. It blows my mind, the fact that they could make this park happen in New York, and it's because of all these different forces that came into play. And it's not just about that experience, but the commitment from the community and the people that were involved, so that they would transfer density rights so that Frank Gehry could build his building that was there. The Highline enabled Frank Gehry and some of these other architects to design these fantastic places. So does the building that Frank Gehry designed inspire me? Not as much as the people who actually made that project possible.